Now, speaking in the last hour, President Trump did not mention gun law, but said he would be working with local authorities. And this, of course, is in relation to that school shooting that happened at 3 p.m. yesterday, local time in Florida. We now know at least 17 people have been killed. But President Trump has been holding a press conference in the last hour or so. Here's what he had to say.
Later this month, I will be meeting with the nation's governors and attorney generals. We're making our schools and our children safer will be our top priority. In times of tragedy, the bonds that sustain us are those of family, faith, community, and country. These bonds are stronger than the forces of hatred and evil.
So we're now asking, does the US need a different approach to tackling gun deaths? I'm joined now by Victoria Coy, the National Director of the United States to Prevent Gun Violence, and also Harlan founded the Democrats for Trump. Very good afternoon to you both. Let's start with you then, Victoria. Does there need to be an update on US gun law?
An update and an addition. Unfortunately, in 2004, we allowed an assault weapons ban to expire that was put in place in 1993. We believe that this is one easy, low-hanging fruit that the country can take under advisory and can stop future incidents like this.
Harlan, do you agree?
Well, let's look at the polling. If we're going to be talking about banning weapons, there's not going to be the political appetite for that in the American electorate, and there will be a backlash against any effort, whether it comes out of the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, to do that. But there is an appetite for greater restrictions on guns, more of an emphasis on background checks, closing loopholes during the process of acquiring a weapon. In fact, over 55% of gun owners in the United States support strengthening restrictions on gun ownership. So there is an appetite for some change here, but it's got to be measured. More guns are owned by Americans than at any point in the United States history. I don't see that changing. It is just a fact of life that, and it's enshrined in our Bill of Rights, that we have the right to bear arms. And I don't see that that's going to change anytime soon. So we need to focus on reforms that are attainable and realistic, not shooting for the sky.
Victoria, do you think that strengthening gun laws will actually have any impact? Because there's so many in the United States in circulation.
You know, I actually completely agree with Harlan that looking at existing regulations, things like universal background checks is a great place to start. But I wonder why he's working for President Trump when Trump himself revoked Obama-era regulations that made it harder for people who are severely mentally ill to buy guns. And when that got revoked, we know that people are accessing weapons that they shouldn't be allowed to access because of this. So which is it, Harlan?
Well, there we go, Harlan. What is it?
Yeah, no, let me respond to that. I think first we need to see what the president's full and comprehensive plan is going to be in response to this. He's saying that over the coming weeks and months, he's going to take the time to speak to leaders, both Democrat and Republican, across the country about ideas to pursue some sort of change here. And I think that the president is unbelievably responsive to feedback. I know that firsthand. He is willing to listen to people that are coming to the table with reasonable ideas that are not in conflict with his position or his base. And so I'm actually reassured that we can find some common ground between Democrats and Republicans here that's realistic. And let's give the president a chance on this.
So, Harlan, why did President Trump not even mention gun law when he spoke and gave his press conference in the last hour or so? He made a direct address to children in the United States, but he did not mention gun laws.
Yeah, well, look, I do think that at the heart of one of our biggest problems in this country, and it goes beyond just gun violence, is mental health. And he took time to specifically call out that as an issue. I mean, it's an epidemic in the United States. We have an epidemic of monumental proportions in our mental health system, and some of that's due to deficiencies in our healthcare system, frankly. And we need to address that. So I think that what he's shining a light on is everybody.
Victoria, your view on that, because you're shaking your head.
So we don't have more mental health problems or illnesses than England. We don't have more mental health problems than we do in other industrialized countries. And yet we have a gun violence rate that's 20 times higher than that of other industrialized countries. In fact, mentally ill folks are more likely to be victimized than to be the perpetrator of victims. And only 4% of interpersonal violence is committed and can be attributed to mental health issues alone. So yes, we do need to do better with healthcare. And again, that's why I'm surprised that you support the person that you do. However, we also need to look at policies that are directly about the issue at hand. It's time that we talk about guns. Full stop.
OK, let me just bring this idea in then. It has been reported that the suspect in this latest shooting, which, by the way, is the 9th deadliest shooting in the United States in recent history, he reportedly obtained this gun legally. So how is it, Harlan, that background checks might work?
Well, see, this is the problem. After every single one of these catastrophes, people rush to cable news channels, and they start proposing changes to gun laws in this country. And when you look at it, there are very little proposals that would have actually just stopped the massacre that just occurred. The incident in Las Vegas, where over 50 people were massacred on the Las Vegas Strip, the one proposal that came out of that was banning bump stocks. And that was a reasonable proposal that people, even including the NRA, and over, I think it was 79% of gun owners, or 79% of Americans, rallied behind. And so there are meaningful suggestions that can be brought to the table to start solving this problem in this country. But the problem is that you have pundits all over the country, all over the United States, that are just proposing restrictions that gun owners are going to oppose, and aren't going to stop these massacres. I mean, you mentioned, putting more restrictions on gun ownership wouldn't have stopped this gentleman from purchasing a weapon.
OK, let's bring Victoria back in. You're shaking your head again. Why is this such a political hot potato, Victoria?
I'm just so curious why Harlan keeps making my point. The exact bump stock ban that was reasonable that he's talking about, that I also worked on, was torpedoed by House GOP. I know, Harlan. I'm literally trying exactly what you're telling me to try. But with every single step, the GOP, and in fact, the gun lobby, who gives massive donations to GOP war chests, like the $3 million that they gave to President Trump, his single largest domestic contributor, are there fighting us at every single reasonable regulation. So that's exactly what we're trying, Harlan. I'm glad to hear we're on the same side.
OK, Harlan, last word with you, then we've got to wrap up.
The entire Republican Party. I mean, the Republican Party is a big tent party, and we don't all see eye to eye on every issue. But the president has been clear that he's willing to consider reasonable legislation. The NRA supported the bump stock ban. And so just saying because some GOP members opposed it, you can't cast that against all of us.
OK, I think we're going to have to agree to disagree, both of you. Victoria Coy, Harlan Hill, thanks ever so much for your time. Appreciate that. Now.